This is Waves, a podcast from APTA Michigan. I'm Andy Wicks. The benefit of owning your own practice is being your own boss and the captain of your proverbial boat. However, that also comes with the responsibility of bringing in enough money to keep the lights on, paying your staff a competitive wage, competing with other local clinics, and squeezing more juice out of that reimbursement lemon. But most of us went into this profession because we wanted to help people. How do you help people in your clinic who don't have good insurance, or any insurance? How do you reconcile being a good steward of the profession with making enough money to be financially viable? Dr. Ryan Shelton, owner of PhilanthroPT in Kentucky, has some thoughts on that, and many other topics. Buckle up.
Well, my name is Ryan Shelton. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I am the owner of PhilanthroPT, which is a for-profit outpatient physical therapy company. And what we do is we try to help people with pain, regardless of their insurance type and their ability to pay. So what we're trying to figure out is how to make physical therapy more accessible to folks who historically and systematically get turned away from the care that they need, and what we would say is the care they deserve. So that's
like that.
Yeah, that's kind of that's our mission.
Nice. How did you get into that particular avenue? So we already learned that you're from Illinois, but you currently live in Kentucky. Yep. But how did you get into this kind of angle of outpatient care specifically?
Well, I got real lucky. So I started working for a company out in Pennsylvania, and when I started, they had I think 13 clinics. And by the time I finished up with them and they got bought out, we were up to 190, 180 clinics.
Whoa.
And
wow,
we were a very busy clinics. But I've always been able to see patients with all types of insurance, whether they could afford physical therapy, whether they had insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I got lucky. My first corporate job, my first and only corporate job, we were giving away $6-7 million worth of care as the company got really big and really large. So I was always really lucky. And then where my career trajectory took me was into clinical education and running and coordinating a residency and spine fellowship program. So the benefit of my job at that point when I moved to Kentucky was I got paid to teach, and I love treating patients. So I was always treating patients kind of out of my office, the tricky patients, the folks who, ran out of insurance or we didn't know what we were doing with them. So I got to kind of carve my own little corner of serving these people because my job, I was paid to not see patients anyway. So it was one of those things. If I could fit some folks on my schedule, I was just kind of seeing them pro bono. And if I'm being perfectly honest, one of the reasons I really enjoyed seeing people pro bono is we just saw them. I mean, they weren't patient. So you want to do this for free? Because I don't want to do the note. That would be great. We'll just write it on paper or do a note, but a very basic paper note. So that was fun. And then I remember we were going to get bought out by another big company, and I could just hear from just the way that the new management team was talking about things like, these aren't my people. And then everything started rolling where now we can't accept Medicaid patients anymore because it costs us money. Whereas the company that they just bought out was making great money, and we'd been seeing them for the whole 15, 16 years that I was working with them. So it was pretty clear that these aren't my people. And so I put in my 1-year notice because I just had one of those types of jobs that we really needed to find someone to take it over. And I spent that year making little notes of, this is what they're changing and this is terrible and I'm going to do this better. And so by the time I finished up and was ready to start my own, I had a good list of things that we are not going to do. And, things we're going to, what I would call, try to clean up, because these folks are causing problems in my neighborhood for folks who need physical therapy. So.
And then you just started your own practice, and there we are.
I started my own practice. Yeah.
Nice.
It wasn't that easy, obviously. It's never that easy, but I was lucky that for about 1.5 years, I had a industrial prevention gig that I could work 20 hours a week. and it paid a pretty good portion of my family's income that we needed. And so the saving grace for me being able to start my business was my wife was a stay-at-home mom,
Hmm.
and we needed insurance. And so she was graciously okay with going back into the workforce so we could kind of figure out how to make this work and get some insurance. And 3 years in now, and we're still doing it. So
That's awesome. And it sounds like, well, I mean, are you growing? Are you
w-
staying steady?
we're growing. So we're on our second clinic. I'm in my clinic here is soft open. We're
Ooh.
not fully open yet, but I got a full schedule. So it's real nice that we planted so many seeds in those first couple of years, and now it's starting to pay off. So this is great because this is really when I need it to start paying off, so we can grow a little bit. But when I
That's
first
awesome.
started, I really wanted to just take care of my community, and I didn't really have any interest of doing anything on a big scale. But the more I realize that this is a viable business option, and the more I realize more clinics provides more money to me and my family and to our pro bono fund, we want to grow now. And my big plan is, or my maybe not, well, the plan is to grow, but what I get excited about is the bigger we can grow this, then the bigger the message gets, and the more pushback we get to push back against the folks, corporate and non-corporate, who are choosing insane profits over helping people who need help.
Well, yeah, and that's that's an amazing message that we need to amplify. Catherine,
Mhm.
you look like you were about to say something.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, logistically wise, A, what does a full schedule look like for you? And then B, I guess what are the biggest things that you do differently within your practice that you feel like some of the larger companies aren't doing?
So like a typical, my schedule is wild because I'm still wearing a lot of hats. But so the typical full-time employee that we have in one of our clinics, he is 40 hours a week. We have about 60 slots on his schedule, and he's about at between 45 and we need to get him up to about 55. But we're in that growth stage. I just stepped out and he was our first hire. But we're seeing everybody one-on-one. There's no double booking. It's really about accessibility and personalized care. So, I walked into the clinic last week or 2 weeks ago, and I saw two patients in the room together, and my blood was like boiling, like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? And I see the therapist, and he's doing manual therapy on one patient on the table, and he's like directing another patient how to do exercise in the same room. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? And then I find out that it was a mom and daughter, and the daughter had a appointment later in the day, and
Ah,
she just had time. So mom and her like, this works out if we do it together. So
That's
that's when
funny.
we realized that it makes sense one-on-one, but it's not always going to be
it
one-on-one.
was patient-centered care
Yeah.
because it was
It's
what
Patient-
helped them
So,
both.
it's
so,
family-centered care right there.
yeah, but I
Yes.
would say, obviously we're biased, but when we really ask a patient what they want, they don't want to be seen with three people at the same time. They
Well,
want
sure.
they want one-on-one
Yeah.
care. And I know there's patients who don't necessarily want that, and that's fine because they wouldn't enjoy their time with us because it's intense. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of education. It's a lot of coaching. And if you just want to come in and hop on the bike and get your hot pack, we don't even have a hot pack, so we can't help. But so what we do differently is one, we accept people regardless of insurance or whether they have insurance or not. So what we've been able to do so far is essentially we have a pay what you can program. So we have things in place where if you need sliding scale services and those sort of things, we have a sliding scale. But the bottom line is, if you need help, we're gonna see you.
Yeah,
Um, but the sliding scale is somewhat of a vetting process because a lot of folks would take free care whether they can afford it or not.
well,
So
sure. Yeah.
anyone who's fitting in the low income, anyone who's below the poverty lines, those folks are basically able to tell us what they can afford, and that's what we lock it in with, and we see them for that rate, whatever we would decide works for them. So that's one of the big things. The other thing is every time we hear of a patient comes in our door, or someone in the community tells us that I went to this place and they don't take my insurance, we go in network with that insurance. So we're looking for everyone who's being turned away. So we have a home for anybody in our service area who needs physical therapy.
One thing I'm hearing you say a lot, Ryan, and I know I've heard it from other therapists as well, that I really want to just echo and emphasize, is that you are working very diligently to meet the needs of your immediate community. So doing those things like recognizing that you have people who live in a socioeconomic level that would otherwise preclude them from getting therapy. But also even what you just said in terms of insurance is like, oh, I'm recognizing that PT chain A isn't taking this insurance. And even like from the purely business side of it, it's like, that could be a business opportunity. Like, let's provide the service that someone else isn't. Great. But more so, I think from just maybe the humanitarian side of, there is a need of care that is not being met, and you are just working. I think it's great. It sounds like you're working really hard to make your community better. And that is one of those sentiments that, to me, it warms the deepest cockles of my heart, because it's just like, that's the rising tide lifting all boats sort of thing. It's like, if everyone's going to do better, guess what? Everyone's going to do better. I love that.
Thanks. We love it too. That's why we do it. For me, it's, and I would never, it's not easy running a business. So it's not easy for anyone to run a business, but I think that it's just not exciting to me to get the playbook that is, go find the insurances that are the best paying and throw everyone else away, and you can make a lot of money. If you want to make a lot of money, it's not hard to do. But we're not, we're a for-profit company, but we're more of a for-purpose company. And so profits will come, but it's got to come with a purpose. So I have no intentions of, let me back that up. I am not going to be happy if I can make a lot of money by over people in my community. So I can be happy by being the only person who will do this and kind of making it by a meager living. That's totally fine with me. So I really do think now, though, that I really think there's some good money to be made in this endeavor. And that's another reason why I wanted to grow it, because if we can show people who really who are more profit focused than I am, and if I can show them there's profit in this, then I think we can get more people on the fence who are profit focused to also do great things and help their community out as well.
Yeah. And I think that the way I love we are a for-purpose company. Oh, that's so good. Catherine, you should steal that.
I'm sure
I was just going to mention that I've mentioned this podcast episode so many times to people, but there's this, there's a podcast that I listen to a lot called How I Built This. And it's basically like a bunch of business founders get interviewed about the process of starting their company. And my favorite one of all time is from several years ago with the founder of Patagonia. And it's very similar like concept of where he was like, I just wanted like people of my community, for him was mountain climbers, like have good gear that they liked. And I never really wanted to make huge profits and stuff. And they still have like really strong values of protecting the environment and sustainability and things. But anyway, a lot of that same concept echoes with what you're saying of, we're not in business just to make money. We're here to have an impact on the community and in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a now famous bakery, the Grayston Bakery out in Yonkers, New York. They're a big supplier of like Tom and Jerry and not Tom and Jerry, Ben and Jerry. There we go. Ben and Jerry's.
I was like, wait, Tom and Jerry, wait a second.
But so they were, I essentially tried to rip off their business model and I couldn't make it work the way they do. So now we're finding our way, but they are a bakery who they have an open hiring program. So no background checks. And what they do with their money is they build housing and apartments. And so they started their business based on, they want to end homelessness. So they started a bakery because it's an easy on-ramp for people who are unskilled. And as they started working with people, they started to figure out, oh, well, here's another problem of why you can't work. So let's put our money into this. And the more they keep doing that, they're taking care of the community by working with the community. So they go into the situation, or they went into the situation, we're here to help. And they just kept learning along the way. And so that would be the business that I look at as the kind of the impetus of we need to do something bigger like this to help
There's
the community.
there's two things that come to mind when you're talking about both the bakery story, but now I really want, like, I can smell, like fresh baked rolls or something right now. It's weird. But two things, and I always have a heart, like the idea of like a medical mission trip or things like that, where people go to a different place to do a thing, maybe provide a little bit of a help, but it's not their own community. They're outsiders who are there for a very short time and then they leave. And what you're describing is obviously very different. They are in the community. They are embedded and live in the community, and they're already trying to improve their own surroundings. It's not that they're trying to make someone else's community better. They're trying to make their own community better, and recognizing that to do that, we have to invest in these people and figure out what their needs are. But I also want to say this because yes, I think anyone who's listened to the podcast for any length of time knows that we're all about, humanities and let's all love one another and things like that. But at the same time, you're also recognizing you are a business owner and you have to keep the lights on, and you are showing that this business model where you are helping the community and meeting the needs of the neediest, and yet you're still turning a profit. Like, that's not disregard. Like, yeah, this is a business and you are making a profit. And so I like that you mentioned for those folks who are maybe more biased to the profits first model, to help them recognize that they're not mutually exclusive, like profits or service. It's like, I think you're demonstrating that they can coexist. And I think that's just very, very, a very interesting way of looking at, especially the outpatient healthcare model, because I think that's where there's a lot of struggle with the outpatient model, is simply that, we're all of us are trying to squeeze more juice out of that lemon, and you're maybe finding out that, hey, let's look at a different fruit. I don't know where the analogy is breaking down, but you know what I'm trying to say.
And we're I'm committed to this. So this is what I'm gonna figure out. If it doesn't grow, I can make a living doing this and I'll be happy. But I really do think it, and I believe it's gonna grow and it will grow. So it'll be nice to um, work out the kinks.
Yep.
So that way when people who, again, more profit minded, there's a little bit more of a system in place, a little more, a different kind of a playbook that we could, help people find to still do good and still make money. And what we're doing is when we get full, like, we're going to take care of everyone in the community, but we have a 20% profit margin that we put back into a pro bono fund. So we're taking even more off the top to provide money for other community organizations to help with the social determinants of health, helping people, eat better, live better, sleep
Yeah.
somewhere warm. Those are the things that when we get to the point where we are up and running and both clinics are full, the numbers say I should be able to give back $4,000 to $5,000 a month to the community. So that's
Wow.
that's paying all the
amazing.
employees, that's taking profit, and that's taking 20% of that profit. And it's almost irritating to look at these numbers finally and like, what the heck are we doing? Like, there's so much money to be made in this world, and in the world of physical therapy and outpatient physical therapy. And I think things are slightly better than average in Kentucky. I know there's other states that Medicaid makes it very, very difficult. It's not easy here in Kentucky, but it's better than some places. So,
Yeah.
um, but I think I get the reimbursement thing because we're dealing with it too. But the people who are, I believe, the people who are dug in that the reimbursement is going to be the death of us, didn't really have it in them to be good entrepreneurs. It doesn't make sense that that's not solving a problem. That's just extracting money from people. So I think that there's a difference of people who are running businesses and there's people who are trying to solve problems. And I look at I look at, we have a lot of things that we can try and do to do better than we're doing now. So
I like the when you're talking about the reimbursement being the death of us, because that's the easiest dog whistle to sound. But I think that when you're saying that, it also sounds like that they're just not looking for different. They're not looking for new solutions. They're looking for the same solution to the problem with diminishing returns instead
yeah,
of trying to figure out just completely different ways of looking at it. So I guess I want to ask, speaking to the Medicaid thing specifically, this is how I first heard of you, was reading some of your tweets about things like, that taking Medicaid reimbursement isn't a, financial suicide or anything like that. How did you find those things out? How did you learn that, like, hey, that we can still make this work?
I don't recommend doing it the way I did it.
Ah,
I was mad and I started my business because I was upset that this is how it is for people. And so we did it all backwards. So
okay.
we found out I'm going to see people with Medicaid. And if I'm going to see them for free anyway, I might as well just go in with them. And if I can make $5 or $10, that was my thought process. Well, if I can make $5 or $10, then I'll make $5 or $10. And
Yeah.
then I found out some versions of Medicaid are paying us $137 for an eval. So, you know, some are not. some
Yeah.
some of them are well under that. And so it's and it's different in every state, obviously. But what we found out, it's not as terrible as we thought it was. And in a very personal experience kind of way, it's the reason it doesn't work in a lot of places in the companies that bought out the previous place I was at is because they're double booking and triple booking. So you can't, just like Medicare, if you double book 2 Medicare patients, you don't get paid for them, or you only get paid for
Ah,
one of them. So
yeah.
it's so much about volume. They don't even, I can't say they don't care, but clearly there's a disconnect, because if they're
Yeah.
willing to see 2 Medicares at the same time, they're either going to do fraud, which happens,
Yeah.
or they're going to eat the visit, which rarely happens. But still, like, there's so much just waste going on that I think if you do it, if you learn the rules and understand really what's going on, then you can figure out how to make it work. And I think that from my experience working for a very busy company and then getting bought out by another bigger company, it's just about volume,
Yeah.
and they're making money, and the investors want to see growth. And so
Interesting.
it's just a different game we're playing, I think. Well, not I
So
think.
is it a little bit of a scalability issue when your clinic gets so large and you have so many therapists and you need to keep them all occupied and busy, that the best way to do that is just volume, volume, volume? Or is it more of an ethos of, no, we're not going to double and triple book you. We're going to understand that your limit of seeing a patient is a one-on-one visit.
On
You know
our
what I
end,
mean?
on my
Well,
business.
I'm just kind of hypothetically speaking, like, is that where the problem seems to lie? Is that this understanding in a lot of corporate outpatient clinics that the norm is double booking, triple booking, whatever it is, and is that just we need to is the solution to get away from that model?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, that model is the problem.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to get away from that model as fast as possible. But they're the dominant force in the space right now. And so,
Yeah,
how do you kick out Nike? How do you beat up on Walmart? You can't do that. So hopefully people stop working there and starting their own practices and starting to compete with them. So, but that's a long game. That's not a
yeah,
short-term thing. But I think the disconnect is, um, from what I've seen from the folks who are the largest donors of the CSM, is how they do it is the people at the top have no idea what's happening. They just look at numbers. They have
yeah,
no idea who the community is. They don't know the people they don't know their employees. They just are looking at numbers and profits. And that's the
yeah,
disconnect. And then what happens is we, as staff PTs and managers, we're just good people. And we want to do the best we can for our patients. And we want to do the best that we can for our employees. And so we make it work the best way we can. And usually what happens is you got a lot of people who love each other in the clinic, who are hand in hand. This effing sucks, but we're in this together, because they can't do anything about it. So they keep doing what they need to do. And
Yeah.
And some people financially are strapped because they need insurance or, benefits and those sort of things. So I think that's a disconnect that I see a lot.
And I recognize the irony that me, someone who's never worked in an outpatient ortho clinic, talking to two people who have worked in outpatient ortho and have both started their own companies. So I also feel like maybe I shouldn't be the one talking so much, but thank you for the tutorial. It's been very helpful.
I think a lot of us see what's going on.
Oh,
Maybe you
sure.
don't know the
Yeah.
announce of it, but everyone sees what's going on.
And I think, like, my personal soapbox is I feel like it is such a self-defeating cycle to have volume be the answer to the issues within our profession. Because if you say this is a doctorate degree, we're providing skilled care, this is high level, and then you say I can do that high level care to 3 people at once, like that doesn't mesh for me.
Treat us like we're autonomous professionals, but also, yeah, I'll do whichever you tell me. It's like,
Yeah.
From firsthand experience, as someone who mentored residents, I saw it. I saw it every single week where you have 5 hours blocked of your schedule. We're going to do 2 or 3 evals. We're going to do 4 to 5 follow-ups in 5 hours, and it's all on a one-on-one basis. And I get to see these residents, and we work together, and they do great, great work. And then I follow up next week, and I look through their charts. I'm like, everything went to again. What is going on? Well, Ryan, what do you expect me to do? I got 3 people at a time. I'm in an eval. I have to run out and make sure my tech is doing what they need to do for these 2 people. It's
yeah,
terrible. And
yeah.
so, it's terrible.
And it's
But I
interesting,
should
like,
say, I would say this too, though. I have a lot of stuff to say about the corporate world, but at the same time, I get to do what I'm doing now because of I got so many resources dumped into me from a
yeah,
corporate organization to train me up to give me the confidence to do what I'm doing now.
sure.
I had
Yeah.
a really busy first couple of years where I don't think I did great work, but I learned a ton. And so there's value in that. And so
Yeah.
what I would love to see happen is personally and professionally for me is this corporate thing kind of fizzles out in the next 5 years and they can train up a bunch of people for me in our area and then they get disgruntled and then I don't have to train people. And it's kind of already happening. We have more people who want to work for us than I have spots because they've heard it's not terrible over at PhilanthroPT.
You are the safe haven.
I'd love to be the safe haven. Yes.
I mean, it sounds like you are. It sounds like you are. Shoot, I had a thought and I just it flew away. What were we talking about before this?
I was interrupting. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. What were we talking about, Catherine?
What were we talking about?
Volume.
Volume being the
No, it's after that.
answer that people are going to, or how can you have skilled care when
Oh,
you're
yeah.
seeing 3 people at once?
Because what I was going to say is we don't expect to go to our primary care physician and be one of 3 or 4 patients
Yeah.
in the examining room.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh, awful,
No.
icky, gross. Like it's uncomfortable enough if you happen to be in the emergency room and the only thing separating you from the next patient is one of those curtains. So while I can't see you, I can hear everything. You know, I had that experience in high school once. I was in the emergency room when the poor lady next to me was getting an enema for the first time. That was
Right.
that was a learning experience for both of us,
Yeah.
but different for both of us at the same time. But it's like, yeah, why is that the norm in medical care and medicine, but why is the norm in physical therapy different?
And why do the pops get beat up for it when our colleagues are the ones who are just as big of a culprit as the pops? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
pops, I know a lot of pops that let you do one-on-one care.
Yeah.
So
It is interesting because I remember being in school and being told like pops were the, of the devil.
Mhm.
And I already knew I wasn't going to an outpatient clinic. So I'm like, all right, I guess they're sure. You say they're bad. I guess they're bad. My faculty are telling me that they're bad. But then it's like, well, hold on. Wait a second. Doesn't sound like these PT owned mega chains are doing great stuff either, but
they're making great money for people.
yeah, they're also not a sponsor of our podcast. So our past president was just asking me the other day though about what are we doing about monetizing the podcast? And I said nothing. Oh man. So Ryan, what do you say to the student who, because we had classmates, and we know of students who, like, their goal for going into PT is to start their own clinic and own their own business. And that's fantastic. Good for them. It's not something I ever want to do. I'm glad there are people that want to do that. But if they want to go into it with the idea of, I'm doing this because I want to make money, what do you say to them?
I hope they make money. I mean,
Okay.
if that's the goal, I hope you make money. I don't know. For me personally, if I hear my goal is to make a lot of money, then you don't want to talk to me. I'm going to make your life terrible. I'm going to make you feel bad. I am going to ask you, a bunch of questions of what's important to you. And if that's the high level of importance, we got plenty of people who are really great business owners that can make you a lot more money. Talk to them. But if you want to do something for your community, that's where I get excited. If you want to help people, if you want to do something interesting with your skill set, those are the folks that I really would like to talk to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, look around Twitter, look around CSM. The making money playbook is everywhere. It's not, again, I don't want to say it's hard, because it's hard work.
Sure.
But if you just plug and play, go take Medicare, take Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, and just triple book people, you'll make a ton of money.
Yeah. And then your therapist will all burn out in 3 to 5 years, and you'll just hire the next crop of students. And
yeah, I hope something.
And then the cycle, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it to them, but honestly, then I hope the wheels fall off for you because you went at it the wrong way.
Yeah. And I've wondered about this because I recently moved into academia. So, when I see these students, and I don't want to discourage them about owning a business, because by all means, I get it. There are people who want to be their own boss and want to work. Like, I get it. But I also have worked in healthcare long enough to be like, PT isn't the typical road to wealth. It's like, if you wanted to go into medicine and make a lot of money, you're going to be a dermatologist or something like that, and while it can be done in PT, I always I wonder, like, why did you become a PT? What is your motivation? Was it really to help people, or was it to fill your pockets? And then I start wondering, well, is it bad that they wanted to just do that? I don't know. Then it starts to become an issue of, is this just my own thing?
Well, I guess to me, when you said that, I was like, that requires more follow-up questions. It's like, why is the motivation? Because I mean, I don't know if making money is like the best like reason to start a business. Like, it's probably better and more appealing to have some purpose behind what you're doing. And also, is it, I have a bunch of student loans and I'm freaking out and I need to make as much money as fast as possible? Like, would be my other point of curiosity about that. Because I agree with you. I mean, this is a long way to get into the road of physical therapy, to then be like, I just need to make money and that is my reason for living. Like, maybe you should have gone and gotten a finance degree or something.
Yeah.
I would push back a little bit on that.
Push.
I think there is a lot of money to be made.
Okay.
And I think that in a few of the groups of people, coaching groups and mentoring groups that I ran into, there are a lot of people who are making really good money, doing the right thing for their community, whatever that community is.
Okay.
So the difference is we chose our community as people who don't have homes and don't have jobs. And so we're in a different category.
Sure.
But if you want to help people after surgery with ACL, if you want to help people in a sport context, or people with neuro, there is a lot of money to be made in physical therapy, I believe. I think that for me, 3 years down the road, I could have probably started off in the first 3 to 6 months profitable if I would have known what I was doing. But I was doing something that, as I understand it, is not done anywhere else. So I had a lot of figuring it out on my own, and then also to my own demise of getting advice but not fully taking it because it always seemed like, it always seemed like it was, I had hangups around how I viewed money because I grew up in a small rural town and we always use money to survive. And there's a lot of
Right.
people who know how to use money to make money. And so
Yeah.
I'm still figuring that out. So I think someone who is, this is totally stereotypical, but if you got that white 6'3" guy who came from a really wealthy family, doesn't have any school loans, they come out of school kind of in the game that we're in the United States, they're ready to really get rolling.
Yeah, yeah.
And so with those resources, somebody could do what I'm doing much quicker than I'm doing it.
Sure. They're starting 50 yards towards the 100-yard dash
Totally,
already.
totally. So I think there's a lot of money to be made, and then a lot of our hangups were my hangups. Where when I started the business, I I started with the homeless shelter. We started with people who couldn't pay us,
Yeah.
and we've done it that way. So we've started with people who couldn't pay us anything, and then we started taking Medicare, and then we started taking Medicaid, and then we started taking more insurances. So we've been like adding on instead of just starting, what we're going to be doing in January. If I was able to come up with what we're doing now and understand it like I understand it now, we could really be a lot better off a lot faster than we have. But I'm just the type of person, my whole life has been, there's a problem that I don't understand and I'm going to go after it. And so we jump in the water and then we build the ship. And that's a stressful way to do it.
Yeah, but so I'm going to push back on your pushback a little bit because it sounds like the way that you did it, you learned it in a way you could not have learned any other way. And maybe would you say that it also maybe taught you some things about your community and how they exist that maybe doing it other ways might not have? I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
I learned a lot of things that I wouldn't have learned the other way. And so what's was hard, but in hindsight, a very good teaching moment for me is we've been in a couple of situations where we were on the receiving end of help.
Hmm.
And it was, I don't like to take help. I like to give help. And so to have that understanding, this is the world I work in, where we are a for-profit business, but the way that our numbers work is sometimes it gets really tight. And sometimes you just gotta, we don't ask for help, but sometimes when it's given to us, we'll take it. And so along that journey, I really found out who my friends were and the people who really, really are bought into this.
Mhm.
And it's been nice knowing that some of the people that in business models that, I kind of poop on sometimes are the ones who are cheering us on because they know what we're doing is the thing that people need to be doing. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of learning opportunities in the way we did it.
I guess maybe I wanted to clarify something too, which is that my statement earlier was more to say, I don't think somebody goes through the whole process of going to undergraduate degree, applying to grad school, doing all the things that grad school involves, purely motivated by wanting to make money. Like I would be shocked if that person existed, just because I think there are a lot easier ways to potentially make more money than as a physical therapist. Not that you can't make good money
Yeah,
as a physical
totally.
therapist.
I 100% agree with that. And I think from what I've seen in my role at the corporation that I worked for was that I was on the education track. So I got to be in the rooms with the managers. I got to listen to the money talks, and thankfully I didn't have to worry too much about it. I got to see so many different managers around the United States and how they did their job. And if I'm being honest, some of those people are the reason why we started with the 20% pro bono fund. That's the reason the 20% wasn't something that we're going to go make money and then we're going to give back. It's because I saw a lot of really good people get put into leadership positions, and the pushback from above was so great that they've lost themselves. It became
Mhm.
how to survive in this job and you lose who you are. And I saw a lot of
Yeah.
people, it's just easier to just go along with it And, once you
Yeah.
get someone to do something a little bit against their ethics, that's the start. And it's easier to kind of keep breaking them down a little bit, whether the people realize it or not. But I saw a lot of great people forget their purpose, and it just became a lot. They were just, they were the stereotypical is all about numbers now. And I promise you, a lot of these people, I would say they were better people than me. And so if it was going to happen to someone like that, then 100% it was going to happen to me. And it was like not okay with me to even allow that to happen. So in my world, the 20% pro bono is everything we do as we grow, it grows the amount of money we get to give back. So all of it, there's always a purpose built into it. Like I want to make a lot of money. And the more money I make, the more money we get to give.
That's awesome. That's so cool. This has been, the session has had a lot of soapboxes in it already, but I always like to offer our guests a chance to climb upon a soapbox of their choosing and then rant for a while. It's not a requirement. It's just an invitation. So if you have a soapbox, Ryan, by all means, climb upon it.
All right.
And say your piece.
The two that I really like to get on, I'll make two short ones if I can.
You can make two long ones. It doesn't matter. It's okay.
Right. Well, our ethics, number 8, I believe, tells us that you need to be doing what I'm doing. Like it's in our code of ethics. You need to be providing services for people who are underserved with and without insurance. At a minimum, you need to be working with organizations who take care of these people. So one of the soapboxes that I get on it's December, it's time to start giving. And the thing that really is disheartening, maybe is a nice way of putting it, is a lot of the companies are going to be collecting money for the food bank. And we're going to be collecting coat drives, and we're going to be picking up families and supporting them through the holidays, which is great. All of that is really great. But what's really disheartening is after the Christmas season, you're not going to let them into your clinic to get physical therapy. So that's something that I would love employees to think about. Like if it feels good to give during the giving seasons of December, then think about what you do for these people in January and March when they need your services and you turn them away. So part of people being poor is because they have a lot of medical debt. Part of people being poor is because they had a condition that a physical therapist could have helped them with and avoided a surgery. And now they don't get to work because someone wouldn't work with them because of their type of insurance. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is whatever niche you're in, it includes poor people and people that don't have insurance. So if you want to be the best, if you say your niche is, I work with throwing athletes, but you only work with the throwing athletes that go to the private schools and can pay you $200 a session, then your niche is not throwing athletes. Your niche is rich throwing athletes. And I wish people would think more about that because when we're niching down, if you really want to help people with TBI, there's plenty of research that says over 50% of people with Medicaid don't get any care with TBI, people with after ACL surgeries, after rotator cuff surgery. So that's the thing that I wish people would think about. I think everyone thinks about it, but I wish they would act on who do you really want to serve? Because if it's kids in high school with ACLs, that's awesome. And there's plenty of money to be made. And there's plenty of money to be made even if you see that kid that doesn't have insurance, because an ACL rehab and potentially some sporting activity could get him into college or her into college or in a school that maybe they couldn't normally afford. So I wish people would think more about that when they're thinking about the population who they really want to work with, is that it will always include people who don't have insurance or people who have bad insurance, unless you just want to work with rich people, and then just say it. That would make me feel better.
Just call it what it is.
Right.
So for our audience, Ryan is referring to principle number 8 from the APTA Code of Ethics, which states physical therapists shall participate in efforts to meet the health needs of people locally, nationally, or globally, with 4 sub principles underneath it, including things like pro bono services. So We'll link to that in the show notes. All right, that was one soapbox, Ryan.
I'm hoping that you Googled that, Andy, and are not like reciting that
No,
from
it's
memory.
top of the yeah. Of course, I googled it, Catherine. Come on. Jeez. Oh boy. You don't have that memorized, Catherine?
I do not. I must confess that I do not.
All right, that was your first soapbox, Ryan.
Well, I kind of smashed those two together.
Oh.
One was the code of ethics. The other one was the niching down.
Oh, there you go. I think that's absolutely wonderful because we talk a lot about, I love all of the niches that people have carved out for themselves within physical therapy. This is an industry that I think we have yet to see the limit of niches. It's an infinity of niches, but to think about things like financial ability to pay really is a factor that a lot of people probably don't consider when they think, I want to work with this population. Yeah, well, you make sure you work with the ones who can afford to pay you and the ones who can't. So, excellent. Brian, thank you for spending nearly an hour with us talking about how to make a viable living, and sounds like maybe even, dare I say, a good living, working with the folks that need you the most in your community. Where can people find you, should you want to be found?
You can find me on Twitter. I think it's Ryan Shelton PT. And
you don't even know anymore.
Yeah. Facebook is, my name is Ryan Shelton. It's my picture. You can find it there. And then my business is PhilanthroPT. So spelled just like the word philanthropy, but just take the Y out and replace it with a T, which was a really not smart idea when I thought about people finding me on Google. So every time you put it in, did you mean philanthropy? So a little work to me. But that's how you can find what we're doing and what we're trying to do. And Twitter is where you'll hear most of what I really think about things, because I try to play nice on Facebook. It's a little more local community and
sure
things like that. So,
well, we'll link to all of those things in the show notes so that you can track down Ryan and just follow him, because he's a good person to follow. He really is.
And I'd love to chat with people who are interested in trying to figure out how to do something positive and give back for their community. So if there's anything I can do to help people wanting to do that, please reach out. If you just want to make a lot of money, don't reach out.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thanks, y'all.
Waves is a production of APTA Michigan. It is co-hosted by Dr. Catherine Klein and me, Andy Wicks. Editing help this episode from Bridget Hammond. Dr. Ryan Shelton is the owner of PhilanthroPT in Georgetown, Kentucky, and he firmly believes that private practice owners can be financially successful while also serving the neediest in their community. He is a good egg. Waves can be found online at www.aptami.org. We're on social media at APTAMI Waves. Remember, you can get PDR credit for license renewal if you are a PT or PTA in Michigan. Just see the show notes for all the details. And if you're the reviewing type, please leave us a rating and review on the podcast platform of your choice. It really does help get this show in front of more people and grow our audience. We, at our little production, would be eternally grateful. As always, thank you for listening, and may your documentation always be done on time.